past optimal lineups and GPP winning lineups, just to give you an idea of what salary structures to use or which structures to be comfortable with. So I've gone through since 2018, basically highlighted the optimal lineup with the little black tick marks here, and then kind of created like a realistic optimal lineup if this is under $49,000 spent. So I show you how much money is spent. Remember, DraftKings has a $50,000 salary cap. So in 2018, your optimal lineup left $1,600 on the table. That's unrealistic. I would never, ever, ever recommend doing that. I think you should always try to spend almost all $50,000. You can leave a couple $100 on the table here and there, but don't get cute. Like, don't get cute with it. I don't think this is the way to go. Plus, if you look at your realistic optimal lineup, you can still get 6 golfers inside the top 10 in 2018. So just to go over the salaries that were used with the optimal lineup, we had 7,800 Bubba Watson, 8,200 Tony Finau, 7,500 Kevin Na, 7,600 Patrick Cantlay, 7,400 Scott Stallings, and 9,900 Phil Mickelson. Now, I would imagine you could probably put, Adam Hadwin in there as well and still take down a GPP, and you would be leaving $4,400 on the table. Now, that's insane. I would never do that. If you want more of a realistic optimal, what I ended up doing was going with a 10, 8, 3 7s, and a 6 lineup to get to our $50,000. So that's using your highest price guy on this, well, second highest price guy on the site. I shouldn't even say that. I'm gonna have to eat my words. Is it the second? Yeah, I think it is the second highest guy. And then kind of going balanced with one 6K golfer, which, we see. But you have a 10, an 8. I apologize, 2 8s. So if you remember kind of how I talk about starting with the 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6 method, kind of going that strategy and making 1 or 2 substitutions, basically you could start at a 10, sub a 9 down to an 8, put another 8 in there because obviously if you start 10, 9, 8, there's already 1 8. So we're going to put a second 8 in there. And then we have 2 7s and a 6. So still follows the 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6, but we sub 1 9 down to an 8. Now we have 2 8s. So it makes sense, right? Going to 2019, our optimal left $1,100 on the table. So a little unrealistic once again. I have a more realistic optimal leaving $400 on the table. So going over the optimal first, Justin Thomas at $11,000. So a high price guy. And then we go down to Charles Howell III, which was $7,900. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. $8,900 Mark Leishman, $7,900 Charles Howell III, $7,400 Siwoo Kim, $7,200 JB Holmes, and a $6,500 Vaughn Taylor. Probably a little hard to, stomach something like that. So a more realistic lineup is including 2 10K golfers, which, by the way, we see this in the WM Phoenix Open's optimal lineup last week. I'll go over that right after this. But super interesting there. So again, 11, 10, 2 7s, and then 2 6s. So what we're kind of seeing here is you could sub a 9K golfers. Again, if we start with 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6, you'd sub one of the 9s up to a 10, and then you sub an 8 down to a 6, which is hard to get to. As much as that's a more realistic optimal lineup, probably hard to stomach that as well. So maybe I should have tried something different, but as you can tell, there weren't a lot of 7K golfers to really grab. Like, I guess if we were to go 11, 7, 7, 8, 6, what does that give us? So we have $9,000 left. So maybe Adam Scott. This is probably actually more realistic. And this is what I should actually add. So this one would be a 10, 8, 8, so 2 8s, hard to see with all the different highlights. So let's do that again. 10, 8, 8. So 10, 8, 8. Okay. You know what? I have to do it this way because I cannot see it. 10, 7, 7, 8, 8, 6, right? Yeah, this is right. So again, 10, 8, 8, 7, 7, 6. That is way more palatable than what I just had up there. I don't know why I did it that way, but that equals 49,700. Easy fix. So again, start with the 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6, make one substitution. You got that one. Pretty easy. And of course, I don't have points for that. I imagine I was looking at the optimal lineup and forgot or just didn't think about adding the points at that moment in time. I don't have them. So unfortunately, I can't help validate them while talking to you throughout this video. But you can see all 6 golfers are inside the top 10. I guarantee you're winning a GPP rostering something like that. So that's the purpose. That's the reason why I look at the top 10. Very, very rarely do GPP winning lineups have 6 golfers inside the top 10. So just throwing that out there. And of course, you want the winner and second place. That pretty much ensures you're going to have a GPP winning lineup as long as you get 6 of 6 through the cut. It works out. Because I can already hear my critics telling me, well, that's not really the optimal lineup, or that's not really a realistic optimal lineup. It's like, well, sure, but still going to be in the top 0.1% of lineups. Anyways, moving on. So in 2020, we do have a GPP winning lineup to provide, but your optimal lineup left $3,300 on the table, where your GPP winning lineup left 0. And I have a more realistic optimal lineup that leaves $500 on the table. So let's start with the GPP winning lineup. Those are all the golfers here highlighted in blue. Starts with Adam Scott at 9,000, Kuchar at 7,800, Matsuyama at 9,300, Bryson DeChambeau at 7,900. So we have 2 9K golfers and 2 7K golfers. Then we go down to Colin Morikawa at 81 and Paul Casey at 79. That equals 50,000, and that's a very, very balanced lineup. So we had, 2 9s, 3 7s, and an 8. It's very balanced, and that's what took down a GPP. But you can see one of the golfers down here, 26th place, scored pretty good DraftKings points. Obviously, that's what you need to do to win a GPP, 79 points. And then Paul Casey down here, 37th place, scored 68.5. So there was huge potential to take down this GPP because this lineup only scored 539, where the optimal lineup scored 586. So there's like a 46 point difference, 47 point difference between the two. And then the realistic optimal scored 580.5. So that's like a 40 point difference right there. Definitely viable in order to do that. Now the optimal lineup left a lot of money on the table, meaning we probably don't have a lot of high price guys. So we have, it's all these little black tick marks, a 9K, 7K, 6, 6, 9, 7. Just to go top down, we have 9, 9, 7, 7, 6, 6. Which, again, probably difficult to get to, leaving $3,300 on the table, unrealistic. So let's talk about a realistic optimal lineup. Start with an 11K Rory McIlroy, go to a 9K Adam Scott, Kuchar, DeChambeau at 7K, and then 2 6K golfers, which, doing a 10, 9, 8, I'm sorry, there is no 8, 10, 9, 7, 7, 6, 6, not an uncommon GPP winning lineup, or not an uncommon optimal lineup. So that's a little bit more reasonable. Probably still hard to get to. I still think you start with the 10K golfer. It's probably the easiest way to start a build, especially in this event. We'll get there with the buckets and stuff. But yeah, I like starting with a 10K golfer, just going over these last 3 years, or the first 3 years that I have. In 2021, optimal was a bit more realistic. 49,600 was spent, so you left $400 on the table. And that started Homa at 8K, Finau at 9, Burns at 7, Cam Smith at 8, Victor Hovland at 8, and Matt Fitzpatrick at 7. This is probably the most balanced optimal lineup I've ever seen. So to repeat that, that's a 9, 3 8s, and 2 7s. That's the most, seriously, the most balanced I've ever seen, ever. GPP winning lineup started with a 10-4 ROM, so starting with a 10K golfer. Finau at 9, Homa at 8, Burns at 7, Clark at 7, and Cameron Tringali at 7 as well. And that was a pretty good GPP lineup. 5 golfers inside the top 10 and the 6th guy in 26th place. That is a really, really good lineup. And pretty much followed the 10-9-8-7-7-6 method, just didn't have to drop down to the 6. Went to a $7,100 Wyndham Clark instead. So, still following the 10-9-8-7-7-6 method. In 2022, $300 were left on the table for the optimal, and the GPP scored 50,000. So, the GPP winning lineup, I'm kind of going back and forth, starting with GPP and whatever, but your GPP winning lineup, start with 10,000, then to a 9. Will Zalatoris at 8, Joaquin Niemann at 7, and then 2 6K golfers. That's a pretty ballsy lineup, honestly. Not a lot of people start that way. It's a really good, I think that's a really good start, honestly, but it still kind of follows the 10-9-8-7-7-6, just obviously 1-7 moves down to a 6. Your optimal lineup started very similar. Morikawa at 10K, Victor Hovland at 9, Adam Scott at 8, Niemann at 7, Cam Young at 6, and Mav McNeely at 7. So that is actually your 10-9-8-7-7-6 start right there. And that was your optimal lineup. Your optimal lineup that year scored 674, where the GPP scored 614. So there's like a 60-point gap between those two. So obviously a lot of room where someone could come in and steal that GPP. And that is basically the end of your optimal lineup and GPP winning lineups for the Genesis Invitational. A lot of what I saw, start with a 10K. I mean, just starting 10-9-8-7-7-6 is pretty good. It also kind of confirms those that like balanced approaches, that a balanced lineup can do well here as well. So even if you wanted to do a 10-9-8-7-7-7, that would work. Or even starting with 2 9s, 2 8s, and 2 7s also kind of provides pretty decent results. So it's kind of wide open. I personally, if I was building lineups, and say I'm building 100 lineups, I think I'd do the 10-9-8-7-7-6 in 50% of my lineups. And then in, say, 20% of my lineups, I'm doing 10-9-8-7-6-6. And then another 20% of my lineups, probably going to start with 9-9-8-8 or 9-9-8-7-7-6 or 9-9-8-8-7-6, something like that, to that effect. Or let's put it a different way. 20% of my lineups, I'll make sure there's no 10K golfer in it. And basically the other 80%, I'm going to put a 10K golfer in it. I think that's probably the easiest way to go. And it's still going to follow like 10-9-8-7-7-6 method, basically. So I'll go over that in the strategy video tomorrow, but I think that's going to work well here at this tournament. My 2 cents, at least. All right.